Aloha.
Aloha.
It's great to be here with you. You can hear me okay? Let's see. I've got the great pleasure of introducing your speaker today, Mark Hancock. I think we were both here at the beginning of the semester to kick this off. Now we're here at the end, so this is like perfect book ending. A couple of things you need to know about Mark. The statistics on successful startups is not good. Most fail after 5 years. 90% fail after 8 years. The number that actually survive that and break 100 million is less than 0.1%. The number that survive that and break 1 billion and actually go public is like 0.001%, right? And then of all those that actually survive that and the person doesn't sacrifice their faith, their family, or their friends is like really, I mean, I don't know what the numbers on that, but it's pretty low. So you're in for a treat today. Mark is the executive vice chairman and former CFO of the PAX Group. It's a post-acute care facility. Basically, think of rest homes that are like put on steroids and have real high-end services. Is that a good description? That's a great description. Yeah. Mark tried to get me to join his company a couple years ago, and I thought it sounded ridiculous. So big mistake on my part. I think we've tried to hire each other like numerous times over the years. Like Ford, Exxon, multiple places. In addition to over 20 years of experience as a finance professional, Mark has previously worked at licensed nursing homes as an administrator in Utah, California, and Kentucky. Prior to this, he was with a Fortune 500 company, and I think you started right out of school at Ford. Also, Mark was named the 2023 Mountain West Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst & Young. He was a finalist for the National Entrepreneur of the Year competition that same year. He has a bachelor's in engineering from BYU and an MBA. And he enjoys spending time with his family, volunteering for his church, and expanding humanitarian efforts. So with all of that, you need to know that in 1995, Mark and I were students together. We worked in an engineering lab. We had, I think, big plans for the future, but we didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. No one taught us like this stuff in school, like they should have. And the last thing I'd like to leave you with is this idea that if you want to go straight from where you're at to being an entrepreneur, chances of success are not that great, but there is a pathway. It's basically through a technical approach, then a managerial approach, and then an entrepreneurial approach. And Mark's basically nailed all of these: the technical aspect, the managerial aspect, and now a much bigger scale as an entrepreneur. He's got an amazing family, and he's always kept his priorities where you would want them to be. And if you guys can make this, if you can take this path and not just be successful, but be true to what's most important to you in life, I think that's where you'll find the greatest success. So please help me welcome Mark Hancock.
Wow. Thank you for that intro. That was way better than my intro of Jason. Can you guys hear me okay? So, yeah, good to see you all again. Yeah, it's exciting. Spring's here. Semester's hopefully winding down. Hopefully grades are still relatively intact. Finals coming up. That's always fun. So yeah, I'm excited for you all. The fact that you have this entrepreneur center and Russ and the resources that you have here is unbelievable. We didn't have this back in the day. And so, a lot of these lessons I'm going to share are kind of things we, had to figure out. Jason and I are old enough to remember what life was like before the internet. It was basically invented while I was out doing a 2-year service mission, and I came back and I was like, what is this? It was like, yeah, that time frame, 1995, 1996. And so there's so much information, there's so much just access to answering questions out there. But hopefully this gives you some insights from the years of building a number of businesses. We're going to focus on one in particular today. So, entrepreneurship, a cautionary tale. And I want to start off just, kind of quick intro. This is me, my family. Again, Jason talked about those things that are most important and keeping those in front of us. This is, my life's work. My wife and I, we've been married for 28 years. We've got 7 children, 2 beautiful daughters-in-law, and we've got our first granddaughter coming this summer. So we're super excited about that. These are some of the things I like to do. I love to fish. I love cycling. I love surfing. I love snowboarding. That's a reminder. I've got to go to traffic school this afternoon. Got a speeding ticket in St. George, so that's why I had to take the helicopter. I got to get back. So I love all these things. What's missing from here is golf. I hate golf. So if, we're not going to be talking about golf today. So this idea of entrepreneurship being a cautionary tale, this is a graphic I kind of put together this morning on the fly. I still remembered how to use Excel. And this is kind of my, rudimentary understanding of risk versus reward. And this isn't kind of a full picture of this concept, but when I was in college, coming out of engineering school, I knew nothing about business. And I think I shared this last time, there was, this other school of business across campus, and, we had our heads down in our books, doing math all the time, it was okay. It was kind of fun. But the guys and gals on the other side of campus seemed to have a lot more fun in the business school. So it's like, what is happening over there? And so I realized I knew nothing about business, had 0 financial literacy, and I needed to figure out, that part of my life. And so I ended up doing a joint MS MBA, Masters of Engineering MBA program. So I was able to go straight into business school. Usually you have to graduate with your undergrad degree and then go work for a number of years before you can qualify to even be admitted to an MBA school. So I was fortunate I was able to go straight through, which was good and bad. Again, I didn't have that experience, that work experience. And so I went into it very green, not really knowing, again, anything about business. But one of the first books I came across was titled this, Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained. And I actually still have this book on my shelf. I've never actually read it past the first few pages, but the title is what really kind of caught my eye and has kind of stayed with me over the years. And so this idea of risk versus reward. So as we increase from left to right risk, there generally is some sort of commensurate payoff of reward. But the cautionary part is there's also huge risk with taking on additional risk. And so that reward is amplified, but that risk is amplified. And so this is, part of business is trying to figure out how to mitigate and manage that risk. And so what I'm going to share with you today is there's no shortcut for experience. So, there's these people you read about in college or, drop out of whatever and start their tech startup and, they're like child, movie stars. They hit it when they're young, hit the jackpot, and then their life is crazy. But, and those are like just you talk about statistics of the fractions of percents of people that do that. It's very, very, very unusual. But my experience is life is a grind. There's no shortcut for experience. And you have to get from point A to B without taking any shortcuts. So this is my resume, the early years. When I was 12 years old, I got my first paying job, besides getting allowance from mom and doing dishes, that sort of thing. I worked at the local golf course, picking up the range balls. And so this was like before, again, a lot of technology existed. Now they have machines that drive around, pick them up. We literally had to pick them up, not quite by hand. We didn't have to bend over and pick them up, but we had like a tube with a bag, and you go around and punch all the balls and they stack up in the bag and fill up and then you dump them in a bucket. It took forever. And me and a buddy, we'd go out every night, pick up all the range balls. It would take us hours and we got paid $2 an hour. Or sorry, yeah, we got $2 a night and it usually took 2+ hours. So it was literally $1 an hour. I think there was some child law labor that was happening there and then my next job at the same country club, dishwasher, worked retail, stocking shelves, finally hit it big when I got hired on as a lifeguard, went through that training. Yes, I did actually have to resuscitate someone, a 4-year-old girl, and fortunately she lived. I worked in construction, and a laundry worker, that was fun. Did some missionary service, worked as a server. And during these times, these first few years, I, again, had this interest in business and entrepreneurship. I didn't quite know what that meant, but I did start my first gig with my brother. Midlife, when I was 22, became a husband, father, and one of the key lessons I want to share today is, again, kind of what's your why? What's your motivation? What's your purpose? And, I shared a picture of my family, and I remember early on, I was in school, had a wife, a son, and homework and work, and my wife was going out of town to take our son to go visit my in-laws, and I remember thinking to myself, this is great. I'm gonna have the whole weekend to myself. I'm gonna get so much done. I'm not gonna have any distractions. I'm gonna be able to focus on my homework, and I'm gonna be prepared for my exams next week. As soon as she left, drove away, my motivation went out of the door. I ended up sitting in front of the TV, vegging out, and barely got to my homework. So as soon as my wife and child left, my motivation walked out the door with them. But that's been a big part of just the drive to this day. Again, just some other titles I've held over the years. And again, this is just the progression of my career. Again, during this time, I was interested in entrepreneurship. I had a full-time job. I tried to do some things on the side, had a few side hustles I'll reference here in a minute. And then finally, I'm pushing 40 years old, and I realized, look, I can't do this part-time entrepreneurship anymore. For something to really succeed and take root, I have to jump all in. And I remember going to and there's never a good time to quit your job and go start your own thing. There's never a good time. But I remember going to my wife and saying, hey, look, I want to do this, but it's risky. We have a mortgage, we have car payments, we have kids. And she said, look, you need to do this. You're acting like a caged bird. You're in the rat race, commuting to work, working all day, coming home, trying to do the side hustle thing on the weekends, nights, and it's not working. Like, you need to do this. But she said, if you're going to do it, we're only going to do this once. You've got one chance to make this work. And so, we founded, and again, I'll talk more about this, PAX Group. And this is I was a partner, founder, owner, chief financial officer for 12 years, now executive vice chairman. And that's allowed me to do a lot of other things that I'll talk about here in a bit. So those early years, what was my first venture? My brother and I were barely out of high school, decided, look, there's a lot of homes going up in this neighborhood. What can we do to kind of capitalize on this? And it's like, well, they all need landscaping, they need sprinklers. We had just put in sprinklers for my parents' home. So we kind of figured out how to do that. And so we just made up some flyers, started knocking doors, and went around the neighborhood. And sure enough, there was some people crazy enough to hire these young guys to put in their sprinklers. And we figured it out as we went. We had a few warranty issues we had to go back and fix, but by and large, it was a successful venture because at first we're trying to figure out how much to charge and how to cover our expenses. And, the first few jobs were a little rough, and we, barely broke even, almost went bankrupt, but then finally got some margins, got some capital. We were able to buy some equipment and really turn it into an interesting business. And that, again, is formative for me into realizing, look, I kind of like working for myself, setting my own schedule, being my own boss. And so again, over the years, as I was working through my career and climbing the corporate ladder, I was always trying to figure something out. So I had opportunities we started a concrete curbing business. At the time I lived in Kentucky. So the little landscape concrete curbs, that didn't exist out there. So we're like, hey, let's buy a machine, figure it out. I had a friend that had lost his job, and I was like, hey, you be the operating partner. I'll be the finance back office guy. I'll help, do your books and spent weekends slinging concrete. But it kind of broke even. He got a salary. We were going to split everything, the profits. But it was interesting because he worked just enough to kind of cover his salary. But at the end of the day, there wasn't much to split. So after a while, I said, look, I got a full-time job, this side hustle, it's just not working. So you take the business. You can buy me out for $1, just take it. I don't need the headache anymore. And same thing, had a friend, an attorney that was tired of being an attorney. He wanted to do his own thing. I said, look, let's buy this Liberty Tax franchise. You run it. I'll help with all the back office stuff, the finance, accounting, and similar situation. Worked okay for a while. After a while, I sold it to him. A friend that did dental crowns, I helped him get his business going. Had a friend that was doing real estate short sales. He actually started a technology, a lead generating company, and I took him down through we did the pitches to the local venture groups and raised some capital, and he got his first investor and an interesting technology that worked for a while during the financial crisis when real estate short sales, if you know what that is, that was a big thing back in the 2008, 2009. House flipping, a little bit of that side hustle. But it took me many, many years and what I'm going to call trial and error to get to what we really landed on, which is our healthcare business. And today, we've built a home health company. We grew it from literally bought just a shell license, grew it from nothing to a $200 million company. We sold that to a private equity group. We've got our PAX Group that I'll talk more about. And now we've diversified into a number of different things. We've got a manufacturing company. We produce the bikes and wheels for the best cyclists in the world. I'm talking the Tadej Pogacar, the guy that is winning the Tour de France every year. He rides our product. Restaurants, if you're ever in Hawaii, there's a concept there called Seven Brothers Burgers. Or if you're in Provo, Utah, or now St. George and other places, that's a concept that we are partnered on. Education, alternative education, early education. We're providing a new concept for that. Technology, we've got some investments there. And it's really allowed us to do a lot of things, including things of interest. Like we've got a backcountry ski operation that we're partnered with Powder Mountain on. We've got a motorsports, a former Formula 2 race car driver that is a 21-year-old kid from Italy who came to this country to drive IndyCar and realized he wanted to start his own race team. And so we partnered with him. And sadly, golf, because my business partner, that's his interest. And since we co-invest in a lot of things, we sadly own a couple golf courses today that I do not ever use. So here's and this is hopefully things you've already heard, but if not, these are things that I wish someone had told me early on that you really need to know as you think about starting your own business or entrepreneurship. You need to know basic financial literacy. So, take an accounting 101 class, a finance 101 class. You need to know that. And I think that should be part of just general education. I think, everybody should take that. You need to know basic business governance. You need to know what partnerships look like. You need to know what that means and how you're going to operate that business with a partner or as a sole proprietorship or with the advisors. You need to know those things because that's the stuff that gets people in trouble when they start a business and then they take on money, and the people that invest in businesses, in your business, or even banks, they don't, there's always strings attached, and there's governance, meaning there's controls around that they're going to try to put in place. Contract law. We all sign contracts. Every time you scroll through or, you got a software update, it's like you have all this legalese and it's like no one ever reads it. You just scroll down, accept it. You got to know what you're signing, particularly when you're doing deals, when you're buying businesses, when you're leasing space, renting for your new office. You need to know when you're, contracting with some service provider, you need to know what that contract says, in particular, what the term is, what you're paying for, and how you're going to get out of that if you need to get out of it. Too many people get in trouble with contract law, basic tax law. So when we talk about businesses that fail, I've seen many businesses fail because of taxes. People don't understand taxes. They don't prepare for taxes. It's usually one of those things where you're running your business and then, at the end of the year, and then, even the next April after the end of that fiscal year, then all of a sudden it's like, oops, I gotta pay taxes on all my earnings from last year. I have payroll taxes that I've been paying people, but I haven't been withholding payroll taxes. Like, those are the things that get people in trouble really quick. And I mean, we're talking jail time for tax issues, and they never go away. Your business fails and you file bankruptcy, you can maybe stiff some of your creditors, your lenders, but you can't ever stiff the government. They never go away. Tax issues do not go away in a bankruptcy. And then how to deal with paperwork. So you file your first, tax ID, open your LLC. It's super easy to do that online these days. What happens next? You're going to get inundated with paperwork, and maybe not, actual paperwork, but emails. But you will get a lot of paper, also mail showing up at your door. And it's like, you've got, like, again, all these tax issues. You've got, licensing issues. You've got all these, regulations that all of a sudden you're becoming aware of, because when you file to open your business, that notifies all the regulators that, you've hung a shingle out and you're in business. And what do? They try to inform you of, here's all the paperwork that you need to comply with to run that business. And this is the stuff that intimidates people, but it's also very easy. Again, there's so much information about this out there. It's so easy to figure it out, but you have to know how to ask questions and where to find the answers. So, and too many people, again, they get in trouble because they start their business and then they kind of circle the wagon with themselves or their partner, and they don't want anybody to know that they're struggling. I don't know if it's a pride thing or what, but people start a business, they want to pretend like everything's great, it's a success, and no one actually wants to admit that there's challenges. And it's usually challenges with all these issues. So you have to know how to ask questions, where to find out. There's so many resources to do that, whether it's online or local chamber of commerce, or there's so many people and advisors and mentors that can help you through this. And I would say the best thing you can do when you're starting a business is find a good CPA. They're going to help guide you through this whole process. They'll help you file your business. They'll help you, deal with your taxes. They'll help you with all the paperwork. So a good CPA, small business CPA, will save you. It's going to cost you a little bit, but you have to factor that in if you want to have a successful company that gets off the ground. So let's talk about PACS. Anybody heard of PACS? Okay. Well, our name is on the floor of the Jazz. Anybody been to a Jazz game? All right. It's on the floor. Anybody? It's on the field at BYU. Anybody been to a BYU game? All right. I guess our marketing isn't working very well. Which that's a whole nother debate, whether it's even worth investing in those kind of marketing efforts. But PACS is a post-acute healthcare company, meaning we focus on anything that's downstream from the hospital. So my background is engineering, finance. I work for a Ford Motor Company. I was in the auto industry for 7 years. I was in the steel metals industry, and somehow I got into healthcare. And the quick story is, we've got till 1:20. The quick story is, when I was in business school, I was introduced to this world of nursing homes through my wife's family. She had several brothers that had become nursing home administrators. And nursing home administrators is usually kind of an entry to trying to work up the career ladder to becoming a hospital administrator. So healthcare administration is it's a great career, but many people start in nursing homes. So one of her brothers had done this, and he had worked for several years. He had come back to business school the same time I was there, and so we started the first semester, which it went well. And then at the Christmas break, he came to me and he said, "Look, I'm dropping out of school." And I was like, wait, what? We just started the first semester. He's like, yeah, I got this offer I can't refuse. I'm going back to running nursing homes. And I'm like, okay, there's a lot of good reasons to drop out of school, but to go run nursing homes, that's probably the dumbest reason ever. But he went ahead and did it. And it was like, and he tried to explain to me, he's like, no, it's great. It's a great career. It's like, you make a difference. You can impact people's lives. And so over the years, I would go and visit, and he would take me to his facilities and introduce me to his staff, to his patients. And these were people that had become like family to him. Here I am going to work. I'm going to the office, and I was doing cool things. I'm working in an automotive plant, and, we're building 400,000 trucks a year. Every 45 seconds, there's a new vehicle coming off the assembly line. Like, cool stuff. We're working in the steel industry. We're seeing molten lava turning into raw steel. It's like, almost like witnessing the creation. Cool stuff. But I thought it was, interesting, and there were some elements of life and death. If someone got, caught in the assembly line or in the stamping, which has happened in the stamping press, that was not good. But there was some elements of life and death, but it wasn't like the truly life impact experiences like my brother-in-law was having. And so I'd go visit him, and again, these people were like his family. He cared for these patients. He cared for these staff. It felt like, it didn't feel like work to him, because he's leaving his home in the morning and he's going to another home, and he's, taking care of people's needs and making sure they're fed, making sure they had the medical care that they needed. And running a nursing home is effectively like running a hotel, a hospital, and a restaurant all under the same roof. And so he was getting great business experience, and it was super interesting, and he was making a difference. So over the years, we kept in touch. He kept calling me and saying, hey, look, you need to come work for us. Come be our CFO. And I was like, that's one of my cardinal rules. I'm not going to work with family, which is a good rule to follow. Don't work for family. But so he'd call me regularly. And then finally, after about 10 years, he said, look, instead of coming to work for us, would you be interested in buying us out? So my brother-in-law, his business partner, they'd kind of been doing this for 10 years. They had 2 facilities in San Diego. They really didn't kind of know where to go with it. And so I was like, well, that could be interesting. But again, I wasn't a healthcare guy. I was a finance guy. So I called a good friend of mine, Jason Murray, who went to school for this, built his career for this. He'd worked through the ranks of nursing home administration. He was working as interim CEO for a hospital in Park City, and had reached kind of the pinnacle of his career. And I'm like, hey, you want to go do the startup with me? And he was crazy enough to do it. And it's interesting because I called 3 other people before I called Jason, and they all turned me down. They had great jobs, they were pretty settled in what they were doing. But Jason was the first one that was crazy enough to say yes. And he turned out to be a great partner. We're best friends today. And partners, we talked a little bit about this in Jason's presentation. Partners, having a good partner is, I think, the best thing you can do. It's hard to be on your own. It can be very lonely, but having a business partner that you can trust, that you can be on the same page with, that you don't always agree with, but that you can go through challenges with is critical. And so we built this from basically 2 facilities in Southern California to 314 facilities across the country. Today, we've got over 45,000 employees. We take care of over 30,000 patients every day. And people are always like, wait, you have more employees than patients? And it's like, how does that work? Well, we're one of the few businesses that is truly 24/7, 365. So, we never close our doors. We never shut down. It was interesting during COVID, and, people would, be short-staffed, or, restaurants, you'd show up to a business and there would be a sign in the door. It's like, sorry, we're closed today. It's like, for whatever reason, including, I think I saw one that was like, sorry, we're closed. We're sad. So they just closed their doors. They were sad, needed a mental break. And so we can't do that. We have people's lives at stake 24/7, 365, holidays, weekends, nights. And so we have people working around the clock. That's why we have more employees than patients. And so we own about a third of the facilities that we operate, which represents about $1 billion worth of real estate. We lease a number of facilities, so we rent the property, but we own the operation. We own the services, the service center that provides the care. Our facilities in high demand, over 90% occupied. So this has turned into something super successful to the point where a year ago, April 11th, a year ago, last Friday, was the anniversary of our IPO. And an IPO is your initial public offering. So we grew to the point where we could go to Wall Street, we could register as a public company, and all of a sudden our stock is now trading. So we sold shares on the open market. So here we are ringing the bell. It's basically like being drafted in professional sports. This is the professional sports of business. So you're at that level, you work hard, you get to the point, it's like you're drafted, first round, you ring the bell. So everything was great. We raised over $500 million in our IPO, meaning we sold about 15% of the company. So we issued stock, new stock, and we received proceeds for selling those shares. Largest healthcare IPO in Utah. Our share price went from, when we listed at $21 a share, we were up over $40 by late last year, up over 100%. Our value of our company went from 3.3 billion to 6.8 billion. And so this was a wild success. Now remember that graph I showed you earlier. There's ups and downs. And it's interesting because people always are like, wow, I'm so great. And, and I could tell, like I had really sincere friends that were happy for me. And I had other, friends and neighbors that were envious. And they're like, you got lucky, and it's like, no, they never saw all the effort over the years and the building blocks. Again, there's no shortcut for experience. All these things, even starting all these, businesses that, failed or that I ended up selling to my partners, like those little starts and fits allowed us to get to this point where once we jumped in all in with both feet, like it had to be successful. And we had the experience. Now, again, I was pushing 40 years old and now it's been I'm 50 now, next month, but it took many, many years to get it to that point. But so people don't see the effort and the suffering. I literally slept in the nursing home because I couldn't afford to get a hotel, and but I'd go spend a week there, work with the staff, I skipped family vacations. We couldn't afford to barely clothe our kids, like all that like sacrifice. People don't see that, so they don't recognize the beginning from the end. So quick, a few reasons why we took it public. We wanted this to be a legacy company. We'd outgrown some of the specialty lenders and we wanted access to public institutional capital, retention, stock. Being a public company is another form of currency beyond, paying your employees cash. So here's our stock chart. So you can look this up. Here's our ticker. We went from $21 to $44 and then all of a sudden, boom, fell off a cliff. So what happened? We were sitting in our Monday morning meetings. Every Monday, our executive team would be together and kind of kick off the week, and literally sitting in our meetings, we're going around the table, people are doing, reporting out. And all of a sudden I'm sitting next to our CEO, my business partner, Jason. He shows me his phone. He's like, what is happening? Our stock is tanking. And I'm like, and I saw it and I was like, I knew, I'm like, the only thing that could drive that is a short seller. So what's a short seller? Anybody know? A short seller basically buys a contract to buy your stock at a lower price in the future. So they'll buy a contract, say like next week. Instead of, if our stock's trading at $40, I want to buy it for $20. I'm betting that your stock is going to go down. So I'm going to pay for that contract for the right to buy it at, sorry, I explained this wrong. They have the right to sell it. As short sellers, they have the right to sell it. So they're saying, I want to be able to sell the stock for whatever, today's $40, but I'm going to do that in, the future. But most of the time stocks, if things are trending positively, it's going to trend up. So you hope that your stock's going to appreciate. But if someone's they're buying a contract to sell it at a certain price in the future, but they're going to turn around and they don't even own the stock, so they have to buy. They're expecting to buy it at market rates in the future. If the stock price goes up, they're going to buy it at a higher rate and they're going to sell it at their contract price, and they're going to lose. But if they're betting that the stock's going to go down, they're going to hopefully buy it. They're hoping to buy it at a lower rate in the future with the contract to sell it at a higher price. So this is what happened to us. The biggest short seller in the industry, Hindenburg, which is a very appropriate name for their research institute. This is what happened. So, well, okay. I mean, here's the headline. So this research group issues this report. PAX Group. I mean, this is a very inflammatory title. Kudos to them. They had great writers. Taxpayers, scam, COVID. They claim that Jason and I were big fraudsters and scammers and all kinds of allegations. And again, I'm all for investigative reporting. I don't know how this is legal. And it's interesting with the new administration to see some of these things that are happening. But at the time, late last year, this is a group, they interview a bunch of former employees. They put together this narrative, which is an easy narrative in our space because we're funded by Medicare, Medicaid, and of course, COVID. There was, funds that were used during COVID to keep companies like ours afloat during, while all the other businesses were shut down. So this was an easy narrative. And again, they did a great job of writing this article. And it was interesting because, my wife, a few days later came to me and she's like, look, I was talking to my sister who was talking to somebody that's, works for one of your biggest competitors. And she said, you guys are going to jail. And I said, yeah, honestly, like if we did what this article alleged, we absolutely would be in jail. We would be going to jail if we did this. But what does this mean? This means the stock went down, and now because of these allegations as a public company, we have to go and re-audit everything that we spent 3 years working and preparing to put together the documents, to audit. The work that's done to prepare to be a public company takes years. And now, because of a report and allegations, we have to go redo all that work and try to do it in hopefully less than 3 years so that we can get back on file and reissue our financials. So because our financials are now in question, our auditors are scared to issue our report until a third party comes in and investigates our company. So our value of our company went from 6.8 billion to whatever it is, 1.4 today. So we've lost $5 billion of value in the last 6 months. So again, that chart, you've got ups and downs. This is the story continues. I was hoping that today I could stand in front of you and say, hey, we're back on file. The investigation's been completed. And what we announced a couple weeks ago was we are nearing the completion of our investigation, and we are expecting to get back on file as soon as practicable. So, as soon as possible, basically. So the story continues, but this will give you never heard of us before, but now you've got a stock ticker to follow, and the saga continues. And so this will, we'll see how this story turns out. Other than that, again, my hands are tied because we're a public company. I can't comment publicly until this third-party investigation is completed. So lessons I've heard the hard way. What is your why? We talked about that. What's your motivation? Be willing to take the adventure. So jump in, take that plunge. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Trial and error. So there's this interesting study that's been done where they take kindergartners and they take CEOs, and they'll give them like some spaghetti, some string, and a marshmallow. And they'll give them 20 minutes to put together the tallest structure out of spaghetti, dry spaghetti with string and tape, and then put a marshmallow, like one of those large marshmallows at the top to carry that weight. And whoever makes the highest, wins the competition. They'll do kindergartners against CEOs. And guess who wins? The kindergartners. The CEOs spend, 15 of their 20 minutes trying to decide who's the chief, who's, what kind of design they're going to do, how they're going to do this. They, have a whole committee trying to talk this thing to death. Kindergartners, they just get to work, trial and error. They just build it up, falls. Build it up again, falls. Build a little higher, trial and error. They beat the CEOs every time. Chase mastery, not money. So find something you like, try different things, be good at something. You have to be better than average. If you're just average, no one wants to hire you. No one wants to pay you. But you can be the best, like whatever. And if you chase mastery, not money, the money will chase you once you've mastered something. And again, you can be the best golf ball picker upper, the best restaurant owner, the best whatever business. But you have to be better than average. So chase mastery, find something you like, and then be true. I know we're out of time, but so this is, as I said, the story continues, but people ask me, are you losing sleep? I'm like, honestly, the first night after that report hit, I was like, woke up the next morning, I'm like, was this real? Like, did that really happen? Like, because my name's all over the news now, which it's never fun. I got neighbors whispering things about me, that sort of thing. But it's like, I know who I am. I know what I've built. I know what I've done. We have 40,000 employees. So do I know what everybody in the company has been, done the right thing? I can't say that for sure. But I know, when day after this hit, it's like, here's my computer, here's my phone, here's my personal iPad, here's my personal computer. Here's all my stuff. Take it. My conscience is clear. And other than that first night, I've slept well. So my favorite quote from Mark Twain is, I always tell the truth so that I never have to remember anything. So be true. Giving, we can talk about this. Giving starts yesterday. When you are successful, that's not the time to start, giving back. It's giving back every day, every step of the way, even when we don't have anything to give. If you don't have that mindset, people that I know have a lot of really wealthy friends that are very lonely, that are very sad, that have sold their souls, and they have a lot of wealth, but they have no meaning in their life. So be true and give. If you give, you always, whatever you sacrifice, you get back, many, many, many multiples. So anyway, I know we're out of time. Sorry we didn't have any time for questions, but I guess whoever's staying for lunch, we can hang out. Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you.